Hi, my name is Gina Tabrizi. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Today I'm going to be talking about trauma. I am the clinical director and co-founder of Harmony Heals Counseling Center. One of the things that we do really well is to focus on, work on, treat, and help alleviate trauma. A lot of people don't understand really what it means when someone says they have a trauma or traumatic event. It's assumed often that it's going through a very painful, dangerous situation where either you've been raped or you were hit by a car or a devastating effect like an earthquake and whatnot. Trauma sometimes is simpler, it's quieter, and sometimes it's invisible and not seen. A trauma can occur when someone abuses a child verbally, by using the language in the home, the language at school, by being told they're stupid or ignorant or incapable. Sometimes it's a softer, gentler version of trauma that has those long-lasting effects. One of the things that happens with trauma is that it lasts a lifetime. It starts sometimes when you're very small. It might start when you're 18 years old and you witness someone who's overdosed from drugs and alcohol. That becomes a traumatic event, and from that moment on, it stays with you. It has this lasting effect that affects every part of your being. Cellularly, it affects your emotional state, it affects your spiritual state. Some people are walking around with trauma they don't even know. They don't even know that they have it. They don't even understand what it is and how it could still impact them. One of the things I hear from my clients all the time is, well, nothing's happened to me. I didn't suffer any trauma. I don't even understand why you're asking that question, in essence. And then when we start talking about, well, what was it like growing up, at home? What were some common experiences? Well, my mom, she drank a lot and she'd get drunk, and sometimes, dad would hit her, or there was a lot of yelling. They're not even understanding that that's not a normal, healthy, kind environment for a child to grow up in. And even if that abuse or that traumatic event isn't physically happening to them or directly happening to them, they don't understand the impact it's having just hearing it or just witnessing it. I often tell people that witnessing the trauma sometimes can be more painful because the helplessness that occurs from watching someone else be assaulted or hurt in some way, something that you will never forget and that you'll carry with you. One of the things we do really well at Harmony is that we ask. People don't know what questions to ask or how to ask someone to understand if trauma is still impacting their life or if it's present in their life. You can see trauma in the symptoms of a person as an adult who's operating with a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of what we call hypervigilance, looking over your shoulder or questioning your environment, a sense of unsafety being around other people. At Harmony, we start asking questions, not just when did this start or how long have you been feeling this way, is did you ever notice when you were little, did you ever get a sense like you just didn't feel worth it? That you always felt like no matter what you did, it just wasn't good enough, and you felt hurt by that, and you didn't know how to express that. You didn't know how to say that to the people in your family. Or did you have a feeling like nobody just cared? Like you could have done whatever you wanted, you're raising yourself practically, and nobody even cared or noticed that you were there. One of the things that I'm discovering more and more, and being in Orange County, it's very affluent in terms of trauma, is these very wealthy, affluent children who are literally abandoned. They have all their needs taken care of. Every need on the planet is covered for them, yet the emotional need of that child is completely abandoned. The parents are gone, they are working, they are traveling, they're building businesses and companies, and the kids are raising themselves. These children are a great target for trauma. They're the ones who look for a place to fill up that emptiness and that lack of really belonging and connection to someone. These are kids and young kids, many of them like 18 to 25 that I've worked with that come from these kinds of families. They're great families. Parents have great intentions. They love their kids to death. They're trying to give them everything. They're giving them too much of everything. But they're really trying their hardest. But the children get lost and they don't have a sense of identity and belonging. The first thing they look for is drugs and alcohol. The next thing that happens, and I've seen this over and over again, is they find themselves in situations where they get assaulted. I have a beautiful young man I've worked with for a long time. Very exact same story that I'm telling you. Winds up on the street, gets assaulted. He's doing anything that he can just to put a drug in his body because he feels lost, that sense of trauma. And this is a child who, on top of having all the affluence, also had sexual abuse at a very young age too that he never ever talked about. And in talking about that trauma and beginning to talk about that trauma, he's understanding why would he, coming from this great family who really loves him and is trying to provide everything for him, why does he seek the street for comfort? Why does he seek being in a place where he could be hurt for comfort? Trauma repeats itself. When you have any kind of trauma, you keep looking for that trauma again in other people. Many of my clients have repeated back to me things that I've told them, and recently one of my graduates, I'll call them, she's awesome. She said to me that one thing I remember is you said that the reason you look at trauma, you go back and you uncover it and work through it is so that you can recognize it when it's walking through the front door. Because what we do when we come from trauma is we'll marry it. We'll go into relationships with people that will wind up treating us the very same way that we're treated because we begin to believe that that's all that we deserve. It's important in the therapy and at Harmony that specifically that when we talk about it, we spend time there. We don't just pass over it, take some notes and put it away. We help the client start to build a timeline of what the trauma looks like. We get them to get their history straight. That's a phrase Pia Mellody uses and it's awesome. Get your history straight. Figure out when you started doing these self-destructive patterns. You know, why do you keep doing this to yourself? Why do you seek things that harm you? So in getting their history straight and looking at that, we start to tease out all of those events. And we'll use all kinds of therapeutic tools. We use EMDR, which is very well known in research to treat and alleviate symptoms of trauma, especially panic, which is also very common with high levels of trauma, right? And in working with that, we'll do sand tray work, we do psychodrama, we do experiential types of therapies. Why do we do that? It's to help alleviate those symptoms. What happens with clients who have trauma and don't know it is they're walking around with a blind spot. They're walking around with an injury they don't know. It's like walking on a foot and you've got a fracture and you keep walking on that foot. How long will you be able to sustain it? Not very long. What we like to do and what we want to do for our clients is to get them to start healing that fracture. You can look at it. You survived it when you went through it. Talking about it now will never be as painful as when you fractured yourself in that way and you received that injury, right? So we want to help mend that by using all of the services. It's a wraparound service where you get therapy, but there's also holistic components to the therapy. We use EMDR and sand tray therapy, psychodrama, like I said before. We use the therapies that help you not only uncover but repair. It takes the trauma and it puts it in a rightful place. It needs to be laid to rest. It needs to be put in your past, not living in your present, being dragged around with you. One of the things that is important is asking and questioning those issues of trauma and getting to the right people. If you are in need of working with or have someone or a loved one who has trauma, they need to work with trauma specialists, trained specialists. At Harmony, that's what we do, that's all we do, and it's what we love to do. If you're looking for individual or couples counseling, we would love for you to contact us at Harmony Heals Holistic Counseling Center.